Gotcha.
All right, welcome everyone. Today we're talking about a subject that might, ought to be of interest to you, because which is better? Is it better to have a listing or a buyer? Everybody should yell listing, listing, listing. There's an old saying in real estate: you have to list to last in real estate, and that's the old saying. And so when you look at what are your different options for getting listings, and if you were to write down a list, right? Well, you could call for sale by owners, you could call expireds. Good luck. I know there are some people that get business that way, but it's difficult, particularly right now. You could randomly call people in neighborhoods. That's called circle prospecting, because we all like getting telemarketing calls, don't we? Right? Don't you all like it when the car warranty company people call you and tell you that, yeah, well, maybe not. One says both listings and buyers, but if you've got listings, you're going to have buyers, right? You understand? Because you've got the bait. So if we were to go through and make a list of all the different ways in which you could get listings, one of the things that's going to come up on that list is farming. And farming is an old school concept where you take a plot of land, you plant seeds, just listed, just sold, community, newsletter, market updates, you cultivate, right? You do this for a long enough period of time, and eventually you harvest all these listings. The concept of farming falls in, those of you that have heard me do the 4 ways in which real estate agents make money, right? There's the prospector, the networker, the internet lead generator, and I'm going to be sharing the screen, Valentina, soon. We don't have anything to share, and I want everyone to see my cat rolling around by the fireplace. So, we'll get to that soon. Of the 4 ways to make money in real estate, one of them is called the marketing method. And the marketing method is when we do something that gets people to contact us. Most of us would rather somebody contact us. Now, if you've decided that that's what you want to do, and you need to understand that geographic farming and demographic farming, which means working a particular group, people farming, requires a sustained effort over sometimes a long period of time. And if you go into geographic farming, it may be a year and maybe 18 months. That doesn't sound as long as a year and a half, but it may be 18 months before you actually start getting business. It's not always that way. I started farming an area in San Jose, and in 2 weeks, somebody called me and I listed their house. Right. Once you get a listing, it's easier to get another listing. When you have 2, it's easier to get 3. When you've had 3, it's easier to get 4, and so on and so on. If you want to know whether or not farming works in your MLS, you should run. It's possible to find who the big listing agents are, because you can add who the listing agent is into the grid, run who's got listings in particular zip codes, sort by the listing agent, and most of the MLSs, once you've identified them, will allow you to map where their listings are. And sometimes they're everywhere, and most of the time they're geographically clumped, right? Somebody has specialized in a particular area. So we also would need to talk about, once you've got your area, what do you do with it? What do you send them, right? And I've got videos on my YouTube channel, and I might do that part again. But the first part is picking a geographic area and getting the information from that area so that you know that it's a good area that you can then use for farming. And to that, we have Brandon with Chicago Title. Title companies and escrow companies have good software, tools, and systems to help you do this. And what's expected, I'm just going to say this, is that if you have Brandon help you figure out where your farm is and download the material and do all that sort of stuff. When you do get a listing and it's time to open escrow, you're going to call Brendan and say, hey, I got a listing. Right? Does everybody understand that? That's the deal, right? He'll help you, but don't forget who helped you once you get the listing. Anyhow, that's enough of me. Why don't you go ahead, Brandon, and take it away? I'm going to add you there. I should have done that earlier, but they don't want to see. They've all seen my cat in the fireplace, so it's up to you. And if you're going to share your screen, which is what Valentina really wants, as well as others probably, you can do that now.
Yeah. So, hi everyone, and thanks for having me, Mike. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in your always informative weekly real estate meetings. So I'm here to show you a few simple, cost-effective ways to farm and generate profitable leads using a powerful tool called Title Toolbox. Some of you might already be familiar with it, but I'm going to show you how to properly use it. And so let's get into it. Screen. Okay. So this is a tool that Chicago Title offers our clients, and it's free to use. And if you guys are interested in using this at the end, please share your information and I will get you all set up. Okay, so first thing is you're going to get your login with a temporary password, which will get you in. Once you're into the program, this is very important. It's a temporary password, so go to your account info, go up to your name here and click on My Account and change your password, because that temporary password will expire. So once you do that, you're good to go. Okay, now you can get started. Click the Title Toolbox home key and it'll open up to a map. And what I would recommend doing is picking an address of the area that you want to target. It could be a past listing, just a neighborhood that you frequent, one that you might live around, but put in an address to get you started. So I'm going to start with this one that's located in Santa Clara in Almaden. So it's 1221 Janice Way. And as you start typing, sometimes it can be a little touchy. So the best way to do it is as you start adding, it starts auto populating. So, and I would click this. I wouldn't write it out and click enter. I would wait till the system finds that address, the official address, and then click there. So once you do that, it will drop a pin on that location. It'll bring you to where you want to be. And then you can zoom out and see what you're working with using the scroll wheel. Okay, so let's say, okay, I had a listing here. Let's kind of like explore the neighborhood to see, how things are selling. So what I typically do is you go to the statistics page, and if you want to start fresh, you always click on the clear search key down here under the statistics tab. And then from there, you want to click farming, and you have a few options. You can do an area search, which is more based on information you input. Different fields, you go line by line and fill out the fields, and then you find a farm that way. You can do a boundary search, which you draw, or a radius search. So you can kind of pick which one you want. I tend to do the boundary search. That I like that a little better. And let's say we want to figure out what's going on in this neighborhood here. You left click each time you want to drop a pin. Make your way around. And then when you get close, you just double click to complete. Okay, so you got your farm, it's ready to go. You click get count to see how many properties that you're working with. and depending on the number, if it's a large number, just give it a second. It will go. This was a little, lower. If it's around like 1,000 or in between 1,000, 2,000, it might take 20 seconds, but just give it a bit to load. But here we're working with 467 properties. And what I like to do before I move forward with anything is I always click this dynamic stats button. And just like when it's finding the farm, give it a second to fetch the details. Sometimes you got to be patient. It depends on internet connection too, but it will always work. Just got to give it some time. Okay. So here's kind of like your snapshot of the neighborhood, and then also a 60-month look back statistics. What's most important to me when I'm trying to find your farms is how many sales in the area and the how many homes are there in total. It's because if it's a low number and you're and it's you have like 5 sales and and 100 with 100 total homes, it's not really a good measurable number. So I would try to raise that number to at least get it around 500. 1,000 is a good one, one that I usually try to target. For this one, it's 467 with a 4.5% turnover rate. So that's pretty acceptable for me. Just to give you an idea to compare, I would say like a 3%, 2.5% to 3% is like average. You can work with that, but I would try to find something a little higher. So this one has 4.5%. This one looks pretty good. You can click out. Okay, from here, if you want to move forward, you sort of build your farm. You move through the tabs from left to right and build your farm however you want to do that. So if you want to just filter out the owner occupied, you click here. It starts on all. It might be a little confusing. It's not. It's all of the tabs will start with all. This one it makes more sense, but if you want to break it up, you go yes or no. Okay, so owner occupied, let's go yes. Get count. I would always recommend clicking the get count button to see what that did to your total. Okay, so it reduced it a little bit. All right, so let's work over to the property characteristics. Let's say we just want single family. Click it always defaults with SFR and condos. And condos, that when you have that property type there, it's also townhomes. So you're not, if you go in here and you click in the box and you're looking for townhomes, you're not going to find it because that's listed under condos. So just so you know. Okay, so let's see what I'm assuming that won't affect it because we're in a neighborhood of single family, but I always do get count just to see what to update the farm as you're moving along. Okay, so that didn't do anything. You can change the characteristics if you're looking for specific homes. If you tab over to assessment and taxes, you can do a purchase date. So it's good to know the average of when homes sell in the neighborhood. And I will show you in a second how you can get that number without pulling records. But for just to stay on track here, I'll just keep on tabbing over and showing you exactly what I do to pull a farm. Okay, so other, not much there. I don't usually mess with the other tab. But custom filters, it does have next seller, which puts the it pulls all the properties that are plus or minus 1 year of the average of when the homes sell. So it gives you a higher likelihood of getting some return for the stuff that you mail out. This is good, but it's a lot of the time when you're working with a number like 400 properties, the likely sellers are it's going to be a very low number. So for likely sellers tab, I would get, at least 1,500 to 2,000 and then run this filter. And you're probably going to get a pretty reasonable number to farm to on a consistent basis. So let's just to show you, give you an example. Next sellers, yes, on 400. Let's click the get count. Okay, it brought it down to 10 properties. So that's not really going to work for you if you're trying to build a farm. So let's go back, get count. Okay, you can, let's see. So you can also do empty nesters, 30+ years ownership, 3+ bedrooms. So when the kids move out, and then, and you guys obviously know what an empty nester is. Okay, so then you can get into, you know what, let me hold off there. Okay, so let's just say you want to, this is how I would deliver a farm to you if you were to ask me for a an area that you're looking at. So I would pull the owner occupied. So what you do there is download the records. It only takes a second. Okay. Populates on a list on the right, and then it kind of it shows you exactly where the properties are that you're looking at. It only does 100 per page. So if you're wondering why you're not seeing all the tabs, it's by page. So if you go to 2, it'll move over and show you the next set. But with this, you also have access to all of the property profiles. You can get individual phone and emails with any of these. You can pull the comps. You can create a net sheet. But if you're just if we're just going after a list, and that's the goal, then I would go up here to export, and then the most popular one to ask for is the core fact, which is very basic. It's just the APN owner name, primary owner name. If you want the secondary owner name, I can do that. I have custom spreadsheets laid out however you want them. But if you don't specify, I usually just go with core fact, which is APN owner, primary owner name, site and mailing. And so when you pull that, all you do is you just click on core fact. Okay, and then it goes up to your little download. And then I'll create your folder on my desktop with your name and the farm, and I just drag over, and the list will look like this. Okay, so I'll just open it up. Okay, so it's a nice clean list. You guys, can you guys see that? Is that okay? All right, so you have your owner occupied list, and what I would do if once you have an account is I keep all my stuff off to the side in my own database. But what I would do right after I pull the farm is I'll save this farm, and once you have an account, I'm going to save to another account. And I can look you up and send you the farm, and it'll send it in an email form with a little hyperlink that'll take you right to this farm. It will open up exactly what you're looking at here, and then you want to save it to your own account and start building your library. So you can go back to that whenever you need to. Okay, and you know, these are all things I can get together. If you guys want to make an appointment with me, I can dive deep into this and show you exactly how to do everything. And you know, this is more covering the basics. Okay, so so after I have that on my desktop, have your folder ready, then I go over here, I go to edit search. Okay, go over to general. Go over to no, so you get the absentee list. Click get count, or else it's gonna pull the same list. You always got to update it. Okay, 66 properties on this one. It's not very much, but usually I try to get you a decent amount, adding up to you know, 1,000. Unless it all depends on your budget too. So if you want to do 500 homes, you know, I would get a list together that totals that and works in your budget. So let's download this absentee list. Okay, there's only 66, so it's going to show all of them and where they're at. Okay, so the other thing I didn't mention is this is kind of just more what I do. I don't know what others do, but I like to take a snapshot. I usually take a screenshot of the map. If I can pull something up, I can show you kind of what you get. So once I have downloaded the absentee list, downloaded the owner occupied list, I like to take kind of a you know, screenshot of the farm, so you know exactly what you're looking for. You're not just like blindly, and you know, you're just trusting me. I want to show you exactly what you're targeting, and so I'll take a screenshot, give a nice cover page. It's hard to see there, but I tell you exactly the total property count, the turnover rate, the difference in owner occupied and non-owner occupied, and then the average years owned. And this would be sent in a spreadsheet form, a CSV. But if you do want to request labels, I am happy to do that for you as well. I don't do large numbers. Like if it gets into the thousands, I usually don't do that. That's usually a mailing service. But if you keep it under 1,000, I'm happy to do the same thing for you guys. So then this is what I would drop off at your office. Okay, so we that's kind of the basic farm. If you were to reach out to me, hey Brandon, find me an effective farm around my, you know, you give me address of your last listing. This is what I'm going to do for you. Okay, if you want to get into the premium leads, let's go back to this. We got a list. Let's put it back to the normal. So let's edit search, general, put it back on all to get your full farm. Okay, back to 467. Whenever you're getting premium leads, I would recommend, unless you're looking for a specific street or little group, I would recommend getting a higher number because a lot of the time with the phone and emails, it probably gives you about 20 to 30% of what you're looking for. But let's say you're looking for premium leads. You pull that farm. You see this last tab here on the Premier Data. Click on that. It opens up mortgage info, leads, and phone and emails. And starting with mortgage info, one of the more popular ones. You can play around with any of this, but one of the more popular ones I do with the client. I'm not able to purchase anything for anyone, but I can show you how to access you know, certain leads that give you a better probability on your return, like an LTV. You know, like I just did a 20% LTV on some zip codes that someone was targeting, and so once you do that, you can do, let's say, so 20. And it gives you some options here, whatever works best for you. I do less than or equal to the account. Okay, so for $9.30, you get 186 leads with their LTV value at 20% or lower, which is a great place to start if you're trying to get into more niche farming. So that's one what I would call premium lead generation ways to farm. Okay, so if you can get into the interest rates, you can search their interest rates if you want to. Again, you can play around with it. We can, if you want to learn more on this, please just reach out to me, leave your info, and and we'll set up an appointment and go over this more. But so I'm just going to tap through it. Just click on leads. Okay, for leads, this one is it will, based on the area that you drew a border around, it's going to show what's active there as far as like kind of life events. And so you got some cash buyers, liens, notice of defaults, deaths. You can pull in any of these. It's going to be maybe, you know, it's going to be probably under 10, but that's another way to, you know, get some likely sellers, because if they're dealing with, say, a divorce, you know, then there's high likelihood that they're going to be wanting to move out. So those would probably be something I would write a personal letter to. You got to be careful how you word it, because it's probably not in the best state of mind, but you got to, you know, just be careful with that. But I mean, if you're very strategic and with your words, so you could probably get a listing appointment out of that. If you go over here to phone and emails, you have the option of purchasing the phone, the emails, or both. Okay, so if you want to do both phone and emails, you get count. It'll give you a price on what that costs. So for the full amount, $467, it's $56.04. You can probably expect that number to be, you know, close in the, I would say, it'll probably come back with, like I said, probably 20 to 30%. So if they don't find those property phone and emails, they won't charge you for it. They're just showing you the most you will pay if you get everything. Okay. So that's the premium section. This is another great way to target those life event leads, which I highly recommend. Let's refresh. Okay, let's go to that same address, 1221 Janice Way. Let's go back there. Okay, so let's just say that that's your listing. So when you search a property, you want to, it'll come up with this little window first. You want to click on generate report, and it'll, you know, you can pull the property profile, O&E, or lead sheet, which is a very popular thing that people do on here. So when you generate that report, it's gonna, based on that address you put in, it's gonna put a 2.5 mile radius around that home and pull you the list of all of the life events that are in that area. This expands outside of the farm that we did. It goes 2.5 miles, so it'll definitely come back with more leads for you. And this is like gold. It's a great list. You can adjust the time frame. It starts at 6. It's a 6-month window, but you can decrease that to create a little bit more accuracy. So once it generates the report, you click on it, it'll open up, and there you go. So you add in the 2.5 mile radius around that listing, let's say, you know, you have 85 deaths. And so it's set at 6 months. You can decrease that. It'll be lower numbers, but might be a little bit more accurate. Might get you in the door a little quicker, is what I mean. So so deaths 85, liens, divorce, probate, notice of default, whatever, you know, however you want to. I'm sure you guys have a lot of you know, ideas and strategies around marketing to these certain life events, but it's a great place to start. Also, but it's a supplemental marketing approach. You're still going to be doing your, you know, marketing to your usual farm on I would recommend a monthly basis. And Mike said it was, you know, it could be like over a year, but what I actually heard is if you do it from 4 to 6 months is kind of the time frame that they recommend, and they said you'll start seeing some action around that time. You could see something before, maybe after, but that's kind of the average when you're gonna get some return on your investment. So here, if you were to move forward with any of these, let's say you want to check out these liens here, just click on the Buy Now tab. There you go. It'll show you the criteria that you're working with. If you want to decrease that, you just go to Edit Search and change the time frame. Okay, so also if you don't, this will give you the full information with 103. If you don't want to pay that much, or you just want less, just adjust limit the records. What would that be? That's
a lien, do you mean that they refinanced, or a mechanics lien, or any of the above?
yeah, any of the above. Yeah, that maybe, you know, if
Could be a judgment.
absolutely. But if you want to, you know, if you have a budget you're working with and you want to limit the records, just go 100 here, refresh the search. Okay, now you brought that down to $80. That was higher, right? Yeah. Okay, so maybe that works more in your budget. So then you just pay now. It will download a list in your downloads folder, and it'll produce a list, which I can maybe show you what it looks like, but it's going to look something similar to the Corefact. It's a little busier, but it's going to have the phone and emails on another section. That might be something, just for time's sake, I don't want to be sitting here looking for it, but I can definitely show you what that list looks like, so you know what you're getting before you actually pay for it. I know Mike has received those in the past, and they're legit. But
can I ask a question?
yeah.
Because I'm gonna have to run, and I'm sorry, I'm having
Yeah.
to leave early, but so I have a little farm, and I have emailed people, but nothing came of that. Do you recommend, I'm asking both Brandon and Michael, going and taking it to people, their CMA, or you know, how to use that farm, like best use of that?
Yeah, I mean, I would gather as much data as I can, and being in front of someone is always the best option. Are you talking about like kind of like a walking farm, like door knocking?
Well, since the emails didn't work, somebody has mentioned it, but you know, I'm not a fan. I mean, I'm in the networking pillar anyway, but you know, I keep throwing things out, as Michael knows. And so I did buy a little farm, and since the emails aren't working, I have wondered if I should print some CMAs and do a little walking around and try to drop them off with my card. I mean, what are you hearing is working? I guess that's what
Door knocking definitely works, but you got to have some thick skin, as you know. Deal with some questionable people sometimes, but we do have a walking farm app that will work with the farm that that you produce on Title Toolbox. You can upload that to your walking farm app and use that as kind of a navigation tool as you're doing it. But yeah, I would say
maybe with a little fall something, or I don't know.
Yeah,
if I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, and you can also, like, you can take out the do not mails. Maybe those are the people you want to avoid. They probably don't like people
Listening either.
your house either. So but honestly, it's whatever you're gonna do. My number one recommendation, and I've just seen this happen, is just consistency. If you just continually you find an effective farm and you market to it once a month, maybe 2 times a month, if you can do it, you're going to get some business out of it. I've seen it happen.
Okay.
I deliver labels to people once a month in some offices, and they give it to their their marketing team, and they mail it out. And I mean, I've seen the escrows come through, so I know it's working.
Okay.
My thought about that is it was a different world. I'm not saying it doesn't work at all, but it was a different world when people were going door to door and selling vacuum cleaners and cosmetics,
Yeah.
things like
And pre-COVID.
pre-COVID, right? And so depending on where you are, doing this is not necessarily the safest thing to do. And I've met people that said, I would never list my house with a real estate agent that goes door to door. Right, because that's sort of a schlocky, it's so, I mean, that's just, I'm not saying it doesn't work. But in the personality quadrants, that would require, I know agents that say, well, I'd rather do that, so I'm at least face to face with people than calling them on the phone. My experience has been is the emails almost never work.
Yeah,
Right,
you're just
almost
going
never.
into the abyss.
Right, it just, yeah, and it almost never worked. And the best approach, which we could do a class on, but the best approach would involve multi-tiers. In other words, do you have a Facebook community page? Have you identified all of the community groups that are in your area? That could be churches, it could be schools, it could be, other things that people would go to, recreation centers, coffee shops. Have you looked for vendors? What I used to do is print out a map of my farm, and I went to all the businesses that were in the area. And I didn't really care if they were a dentist or a chiropractor or a lender or what. I didn't care. What I would do is I would go and show them my map, and I would say, are you interested in marketing to the people in this area? Well, the map was right around them, I mean, they were like, well, yeah, and then what are some of the things we can do together?
I like that.
Right. And I'm just saying, now what we historically find works best are just listed, just sold, and market updates. Community events also comes up there. All right, community events.
What your home is worth. That's a good one. That's one that I will tend to scan a QR code on.
Right, so you can, that's a natural thing. Let me know what your home is worth.
Probably leave it to.
Right, and at one time that actually produced, I don't want to just be cynical, but a lot of people would, before Zillow's estimate, people would sometimes do that. You can still get it. That's the call to action. But what you have to do is to create name recognition. So my suggestion is to pick the farm, and I have some videos on my YouTube channel on how to pick a farm. And my suggestion is that you would start by looking in your area, which of the zip codes have the most sales. I would start with that. See, I can name in my area the 5 top zip codes. I know what they are. Right now, my thought would be that maybe we want a farm where we know the ground is already fertile. Right, let's start with that. Then the next thing I would do is run the MLS and click on, of all the listings that have occurred in the last year, and click on map. And what I'm looking for are clumps, right? Because I'm looking for a bunch of them that are right next to each other. And then I would zoom in and start to identify that area. Once I've zoomed in and I've identified the area, the next thing I want to know is who are the listing agents. And one of the examples you'll see is a farm I used to use when I was more active in Blossom Valley. And every time I would run it, there were no agents that had 2 or more listings, none. So that tells you nobody's farming, right? Because if somebody were consistently farming the area for a long term, they would be showing up in the records again and again and again. But if it's not, then you have an idea that this isn't necessarily as competitive. If you find that there are 3 agents that have half of all the listings, I would think about look at the block over, keep moving, right? Until you find something that's a little more, I wouldn't do a CMA, but I know that Teresa's, but I would instead give them market update information. And you can find services, there's a lot of them. Corfax is one. They'll do the market updates, they'll do everything, assuming you have a valid credit card and you have a list, right? They would do everything. If you want to do it on the cheap and you're interested in meeting people, you can have a flyer printed. And I know agents who've done well with black ink on colored paper. And what they would do, you're going to need about 1,000 or more in order to really get traction. So at the beginning, every other week, so 1 week, they would go to 500 houses. That's 100 a day. And depending upon the hills and stuff like that and weather, that would take an hour or so. So 5 days, they 500, the next 5 days, they do the next 500, the next 5 days, they do another flyer to the first 500, and then another flyer to the second 500. This requires exercise, but it's cheaper than the postcards and the printing and the mailing and all that other kind of stuff. Once you get going, the 12 direct is a once a month kind of a thing, but in order to get momentum at the beginning, you might be doing it more often than once a month. Another thing you're going to have to think about is, are you going to send it to everybody or only the owner occupied? So if it's not owner occupied, it's possible that the people living there are renters, and the message to the homeowners is different from somebody that lives there and owns it. Right, and you can also cut down on the expenses of marketing by using every door direct mail, which is cheaper postage, but it hits everybody in the area, doesn't matter, it hits them all. Or you can become strategic and say, I want people that have purchased within so many years, because I know they probably have equity, and it's been enough time for them likely to sell, and then I'm going to use a mailing house, which I know many of them, that would actually target those people. Print Papa, yes, they've just printed stuff. Reps, I've used them as well. But there are a lot of them that would do that. So you understand, one way is to blanket everybody. Manually walking around and handing out flyers is the cheapest way to do that. Every door direct mail would blanket everybody, and then you can become more strategic in identifying specific people that you out of the group.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on that, you know, I didn't even get into the statistics tab, but you can actually area search like Mike was talking about. And if you're looking at single family, you go and you want to look at zip codes. Okay, so let's do
95123. How about that? If you're doing zip code,
yeah,
why not?
Or I was thinking more, it's going to do zip codes, but how about like a city? What is there any? You want to just do?
Pick one.
Okay, let's
Surprise.
do Morgan Hill. Okay. So you search that, and you do have the option, if you want to start with a minimum turnover rate, you can put that in. You can do a range, but if you just pull it with nothing filled, it's going to give you a little, okay, so that Morgan Hill was a bad example. That was one, yeah, it doesn't have many zip codes, so that was bad. Like, so let's do
Morgan Hill is a zip code. San Jose is where you'll find a whole bunch of zip codes.
Okay, so let's do San Jose, and it should break it down in many. Should be a long list. And it's just going to give you little groupings and little pockets here and there. But Mike was saying, find something that looks promising, and then start exploring that area once you have that figured out. Yeah, it's going to be a long one. It's taking a bit.
We want the ground to be fertile. All right, only 29 zip codes in San Jose.
Yep. And it'll show you too, like as you scroll over, exactly where it is, but it gives you all this valuable information, the average years owned. So I mean, and then all the turnover, but like what I like to do with this average years owned is, instead of doing likely sellers, which only gives you plus minus 1 year, maybe knowing the average, open that up a little bit so you increase your target audience on a specific farm if you're not getting enough with the likely sellers, like I was mentioning earlier. But here's all your turnovers. And you can see the sales based on the number. Again, you need a measurable number. This isn't a bad one, but I mean, I would maybe pick something like sales 174. You can kind of decide. Here's the highest ones. So let's
95125 is Little Glen.
yeah, I mean 387. There's a lot going on there.
There's
So
more in 9512. Oh, no, actually, Willow Glen's a little bit ahead. 123 only has 303. It's slowed down. So
yeah, you would click this and then, or you select it. Okay, so now you can start building your farm in that area, and it showed you exactly where that was, so you can kind of take a little pocket there and start farming. So that's a good way to start. That's just, instead of just blindly looking for an area around your listing.
a couple comments. One would be, sometimes it's better that the farm picks you than you pick the farm. So if you get a listing in an area, you might want to run the numbers to see if that looks like a doable farm. If you represent a buyer in an area, you might want to look and see if that represents a doable farm. One of the questions you're likely to be asked on a listing appointment is, how many homes have you sold in our area? And if the answer is, this will be my first one, that may not, work too well if it's a competitive listing environment, right? It just might not. So if you've already been doing business, like let's say you sell a home in a neighborhood, that means you've been showing homes in the neighborhood. It means you know more about the market, and that will help you when you go on the listing appointment. Once you've identified a geographic area, and I also, by the way, I used to work in an office that was near Silver Creek. Now, for those of you that are not in our geographic area, you may not know what Silver Creek is, but it's a country club, expensive neighborhood, right? And our office wasn't very far from it. It was on Silver Creek Boulevard, right? So agents would say to me, well, I want a farm. And I'm like, hey, where do you want a farm? And it'd say Silver Creek. And I would ask, like I didn't know the answer, but I would say, really, why Silver Creek? And they would always say the same thing. Well, the houses there are way more expensive than anywhere else. And I would rather sell one $4 million house than four $1 million houses. That is, by the way, what our market is like. And that's like 1/4 the effort and the same amount of money. That's for me, right? That's what I would hear. And I would say, well, first of all, you need to understand that in areas like that, the turnover rate is much lower. In other words, that neighborhood is something that people move to. And when they've retired and they're looking at golf communities in Arizona, that's when they sell it. So the turnover rate's a lot lower. Number two, other agents have thought of this, that it's more expensive in this area. So there are more agents farming the area because they're thinking the same thing you are. Postage is postage. Why not send out postcards to expensive areas? Why cheap? Number three, many of them already know real estate agents. Some of them they've used several times in the past, but you can tell them, I'm new, right? I'm not busy like all those others, right? You'll be all that I'm working on, right? So if you understand that as you go up the food chain, it becomes more difficult to get in. If you go to the other end, condominiums, townhomes, starter homes, right? These are people that haven't bought and sold a lot of homes. Usually the turnover rate is much higher because people want to move up as soon as they can. It's a sale and a purchase. There's two possible transactions. There's often less competition because the agents are all focused on the luxury, expensive homes. Just throwing that out, is something to think about when you're being strategic. And yeah, there's a big pain, condominiums, but then less competition, right? Less competition. Those are just a few random thoughts about this. Just listed, just sold, market updates, community events, create a community Facebook page, reach out to community, go to community events, right? Go to community events. And it is true that the agents that are sending out postcards every week in farming are getting business, but some of them have been doing it for a while and they already have had a lot of listings. When you get a listing, it'll be a lot easier to get the second one. And then when you could say, I sold 2 homes in the neighborhood, it's a lot easier to get the third. And if you keep doing this, you're eventually going to be perceived as you're the neighborhood expert, you're the one who's selling most of the homes, and then people start calling you. It gets easier, right? But it can take a while to get there. All right, and Brandon's got great software for helping you analyze the area. My thoughts were simply about ways of being strategic, right? Look at the demographics, see if it's something that you think you would be a good fit.
Yeah, and we do have, which if you're interested, I could set you up with our premier services, and we have a lot of resources here under, say, quick menu. It does have property profiles, which I think are one of the best out there, because you can adjust the comps exactly how you want them. But here under Chicago Title Library, we have a lot of great informational materials that are available to you and then free to download in flyer form. So you can scroll down here and find pretty much any topic you want.
And I know that all of my EXP people are aware that EXP has a neighborhood flyers where it'll pull information about the neighborhood automatically and put it into flyers that you can use. I know you all know about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, here, let me stop share.
Any questions from the teeming masses? Well, this is your opportunity. Don't everyone blurt out a question at once. If you're interested in geographic farming, and reach out to Brandon about areas. If you want to talk to me first about general strategies, let me know. You need to have, if all you do is send postcards to people, you might be better off donating the money to a charity, right? If that's all you do. To be really effective, you got to get involved in the area, right? And do things so that you can put yourself so that you're known. I'm just suggesting that. All right.
Michael, I do have a question. So you get a farm. I had a farm that didn't work out. What's the time period where you say, let's move on?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I've had people say, well, I've been farming for 3-4 weeks now and nothing's happened, so obviously farming doesn't work. Sometimes it takes a year for farming to work, right? It depends on what's the competition. It depends on what's your message. It depends on the turnover rate. What I recommend, and even though the number of sales that Chicago Title can show you, my recommendation is you identify in the MLS that farm and ask the MLS how many sales went through the MLS. Sometimes that's a different number, because sometimes the title company is counting all closed transactions, right? Whether they went through the multiple listing service or not. So that's a bigger number than what you might actually have a shot at. So once you've identified and there were 30 sales in the last 12 months and there aren't 2 other agents, your assumption should be in the first year to get maybe 1 out of 10 of the listings. Right. So the question is, would 10% of those listings be enough money to justify doing this? Right. And if the answer is yes, right, if you're starting with too small of a number, 10 may not round up to even 1, 10% may not even be 1, right? You know, so that's why you need a bigger number, and it could take 6 months, it could take a year, it could take a year and a half. It oftentimes, it varies on turnover rate, competition, average, it varies. Farming can take a long time to produce results. On the plus side, it produces results for a long time. And the agents that are doing it consistently, it's like they're getting a salary, right? They get a certain percentage of the listings in that area. It goes up, it goes down a little bit, but the system that they're cranking it out, that system is generating that business on a consistent basis, that percentage. And by the way, when the market goes down, usually the farming agent's percentage goes up because all the others are giving up and going away, right? So it's an investment in time. That's why walking it, even if you're not door knocking, to just hand out flyers or hiring people. In other words, look at ways of doing it on the cheap, sponsoring things with local vendors. If there's a flea market, if there's fairs, if there's, you know, what's happening that you could go to and meet people that are in that area. Yeah.
Guerrilla marketing. Yeah.
Right. Just, yeah, everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say this is like the most important time to be farming because you're going to be planting the seeds that will repay later. Especially
Interest rates go down below 6, it'll be crazy again. All right. And and even though right now you may not be getting as many listings, that when that changes and the tide rises and you're the one that's been marketing in that area, because a lot of agents aren't doing anything, you know.
Yep.
It's you know, a lot of agents are struggling because they can't get listings or the buyers can't afford it and so on. And interest rates are 7.5. So it's difficult. And yeah, if it's 5, it's going to go crazy. I agree.
Let me say this, Brandon, maybe you may or may not have noticed the same thing. I've noticed recently the market is picking up. I've noticed it. Right?
Say that again. You notice what?
The market is picking up.
Oh yeah, for
Right?
sure.
I've noticed.
I noticed.
You know, I mean, I have a 100 agent team, and so all over the state. So I'm seeing that I get asked a lot more often to help write offers and to help with listings. It's happening. I can feel the difference. It's starting to pick up again. And agents that back off and don't do anything don't even know when the market improves, right? For a while, because they're not paying any attention. Oh, really? There's more listings now. Oh, wow, I didn't know it. By the way, the other thing about commitment, you didn't ask about this, am I going over? The other thing about commitment is that if you pick a geographic farm, you want to go to the marketing meetings for the board for that area. You want to go look at all the listings that come up in that area and preview them. You want to go to the open houses of those listings, because when you do get an appointment and you're doing a CMA and you haven't actually seen any of the properties that are on your CMA, because why should you? You don't have a listing appointment yet. But the owner's been going to open houses and things like that. They know more than you do about what's going on in their market. That's a dangerous place to be. But when you're able to say, yeah, I saw that one and that one, you mean the one with the purple thing that was hanging in the kitchen? Oh yeah, wasn't that all right? When it's obvious that you're actually know the market in that area, it makes it a lot easier to make farming work. All right. That's probably more than enough. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it. I posted your information in the chat. You know, reach out to us. All right.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.